Hi, welcome to my channel. Today we are talking about book number 9 of the Animorphs series. Book number 9 is called The Secret, and it is a Cassie-centric book. The 9th book in the series, The Secret, released July 1997 and 158 pages long. Cassie's second book in the series, the cover showing her sitting calmly while morphing into a wolf. I think she looks very down to earth in this image. Very casual, very calm. Sort of contradicting to the name of the book and the tagline saying that there is no place to run and no place to hide. The image beneath is a wolf standing on top of a cliff with a very full moon in the sky. I think they wanted to make sure that you understood that while this was a human and a wolf, this is not a werewolf. Here's the animation in the corner. The book did have something inserted into the middle of it, but that's missing. I looked it up. It was a postcard with a teaser, but the teaser from book number 8 said that it would be a temporary tattoo. So for whatever reason, there was a change. I just got a little bit unlucky this time that somebody had taken it from this book. Or I was just really lucky the other times that the inserts were still in there. Or it's a normal amount of luck. I have no recollection of this book, so let's dive in and uncover the secret. The book starts with the usual info, who the Animorphs are, who the Yeerks are. She describes the Yeerks as slugs and parasites that take over brains. So far, so good. She also said that the humans who are taken over are controllers. Sounds about right. She then says that a controller isn't exactly human anymore. That is where I start having a little bit of a qualm. I mean, they are humans. They just don't have control over their bodies. I feel like it's pretty hasty to just dehumanize them, especially when you can remove the Yeerk and they're back to being a human again. A human again. But the way that even Cassie seems to be okay with killing controllers because the Yeerk inside is more important to kill than the body of the host is to live, that's what it's making me think of, at least. Like, we wouldn't say that people who have some disease are no longer human just because they're not at their fullest capacity. And like, I feel like you could treat the parasites, the Yeerks, as that, without having to say like, oh yeah, that's not even a human anymore, so it's okay to kill him. You know, like, I understand we're in an intergalactic war and stuff. The book starts with Cassie and Rachel staying after school. Cassie's getting a bad grade in like science or something, trying to get a rat to go through a maze that she built for a better grade. Cassie's feeling a lot of pressure to not get a bad grade and have to explain to her parents, and then they would spend time with her and help her with her homework. And that would just cut into her extracurricular alien invasion activities. But it's cool that she has really helpful and loving parents like that. But, you know, alien invasion. The rat is not cooperating and not figuring out the maze. I thought that was like their whole thing. Like, how are you going to be a rat and not give us any cooperation? That's not a very good mob voice, is it? How are you going to be a rat and not give us any cooperation? That's not a good mob voice either. Rachel suggests that Cassie could morph into the rat and then figure out why it's not learning the maze. Rachel convinces Cassie to do it because Cassie is like, I really do need this grade, but I'll only do it if you do it. So both Rachel and Cassie are going to morph into this rat, and they recognize that it's not a good idea. Not something that Jake is going to approve of, but they do it anyways. So they set it up so that they can reach the maze after they're done morphing and start ratting each other out. They figure out when they get up there that they can't smell whatever reward is in the maze because there's a ceiling fan blowing the scent away. Before they can do anything else, there's some boys come barging in the classroom and they see a bunch of rats on the table and they're like, haha, let's destroy stuff and try to kill these rats that are clearly like not wild rats or anything. So they get a broom and start like smacking the table and sweeping the rats off of it. And of course, 2 of those rats are our heroes and they jump away. Well, they run to the edge of the table and just jump off and they get away. It's okay. The real rat gets cornered. The boys are like closing in on it, poking it with a broom and stuff. Rachel and Cassie each take one boy to harass and run up their pants legs. And the boys run off. They're like, oh my gosh, rat in my pants. The rat girls go find a place to unmorph and go home. The original rat, never seen again. That original rat was never seen again. I put in my notes, meme like it's a cold case. Cassie and Rachel go to Rachel's house and give her little sister a perm. That's it. The usual school day. The next chapter has them all meeting at headquarters, Cassie describing everyone. Rachel is pretty but fierce and aggressive. Jake is the leader and he is strong inside and out. He's also good looking inside and out. What does that mean? Does she give him a colonoscopy or something? I mean, obviously I know what she means, but like, strange way to say it. At this point, they're having meetings a couple of times a week, but usually only when there's a mission. And this time it's because Axe and Tobias told Jake to gather everyone. And Tobias arrives, says Axe isn't going to make it. He's observing in the forest still. The reason for the meeting is there is a new logging company coming in and preparing to unforestify the forest. Not just any logging company, though. This one has guards with rifles walking the roads and an invisible force field that prevents Tobias from flying closer. So the Yeerks are trying to remove the forest. It's not entirely clear if they know that the Animorphs are using that forest or not, but like, that's probably the reason. But maybe they're just trying to make a safer base on Earth, and the forest is just collateral, right? Also, if they did know, how wild is that? I mean, in the sense that it's a planet-wide invasion, but like all the high-ups in the Yeerk force, all the resistance, all of that's here in this one little area that like is isolated, but is also a city, but is also all the things that the setting needs it to be at once. So I guess that's how the Yeerks would know what area to go for, but like probably more than one forest, right? Like maybe they're just going to systematically remove all the forest. That is kind of what the Yeerks do. They make the planet inhospitable for some reason. Why would you need to destroy everything for the planet? You're like, what's the point of destroying? I guess the only resource you want is the people or the hosts. Rachel wants to go see, and the others are cautious and surmise that the Yeerks figure it's this forest because that's the only place Andalites would be living. Cassie is wondering, how did the Yeerks get permission to just chop down a national forest? Everyone figures the unforestation is a front to hunt for Andalite, and they need to not be any random group of animals because that would be suspicious. And I just wonder, did the Yeerks not have thermal sensors? They could have easily swept the forest with thermal cameras, or even just like from space, right? And found anything that was roughly Andalite shaped and just go about hunting that way. I guess they didn't have that back then, but they totally could have. They're intergalactic aliens. They should have heat sensing cameras, right? Humans had that. They could have that from the humans. Oh, it's okay. They didn't have that. They didn't have that. Technology's hard. Jake and Rachel are going to morph birds and go with Tobias and scope it out aerially. And Cassie and Marco are going to morph into wolves and scope it out groundily. They knew that they couldn't just go as a bunch of random animals, but they could have all been wolves, right? Like that wouldn't be unusual to see a pack of wolves. But I guess this gives them the ability to get like a perspective on the ground and a perspective in the air and like a little bit of extra reconnaissance that way. The daylight was almost gone. So the morphed bird people are heading out and the morphed wolf people are now scouting. They noted that they couldn't see anything in the windows and that there was no sound coming from the building. The area was well lit with the machinery. Cassie and Marco are chatting while they observe and realize that all the guards are gone, and then a net comes out from the tree to trap them. Cassie got out from under it, but Marco was caught inside of it, and he couldn't get away. The windows that they couldn't see into started to fire Dracon beams at them, and guards with rifles start coming out of the building too. Cassie couldn't get the net off of Marco. She's trying to like bite it off and stuff, and Axe shows up just in time and like cuts a hole in the net with his tail. They all run away. Nobody's hit by any bullets or Dracon beams or anything, and as discussed, the Yeerks have the most atrocious aims. It's impressive how they've never managed to hit anything to this point. But also, how did Axe's tail cut through that net? What is his tail made out of? That it could cut through some alien material that I assume is not just a regular rope net, right? Because why would it be? Maybe it was, actually. You know, maybe it was a net like from Kung Pao. The Yeerks are just comically inept every time. So the Yeerks are invading on a budget, and this net was the only one that they could afford. If they had been Andalites, though, they could just cut their way out of the net. I wonder if there's other ambushes in the forest, or if that was like the only one. They all get to the edge of the forest and regroup and discuss how this is probably most definitely a Yeerk deal. Recap everything we just read. Cassie keeps going on about how this is more than just a bad thing about the Yeerks hunting them in the forest, but the forest has a lot of other life, and it's a great tragedy. Nobody else seems to care, so this is the second time it's come up that Cassie is like, well, how did they get permission to just cut down in the forest? I think they're alluding to this being like a big operation. You can't just go around cutting down national forests. The government gets mad about that. Without approval, at least. Like, why didn't they hear about it on the news or anything like that? And then a couple paragraphs later, they exhaust all the plans of breaking into the building with force and determine that they can use more subtle means to figure out how the Yeerks got permission. So they're going to morph into something very small instead of very big. They say that the building has a force field, but how does that work? How do the controllers get in and out if there's a force field? Does it encapsulate the entire building, like underneath it too? I just want to know more. It reminds me of like the shield, personal shield tech in Stargate SG-1. They had to use arrows instead of guns because the shields affected high-speed projectiles. Maybe the shield is like RFID encoded or something. You know, there's some sort of tagging system where Yeerks with controllers can come and go freely or something. And that is probably right. When Cassie got home, her dad informed her that he and her have to drive out and pick up a skunk that was injured on the side of the road. They got a new truck because the last one was stolen and totaled. It was totaled by some unknown thief. Maybe it was a gorilla. They were like a quarter of a mile from where Cassie and the gang just barely escaped earlier, and they found a skunk. Cassie recognized that the burn was a Dracon beam that had hit the skunk instead of them. Next scene, they're at the mall shopping, keeping up appearances and all. They discuss how they will get into the building. They theorize that the controllers have belts that have transponders on them that allow them access. But those would be keyed to the biosignature of the host, so they can't use that. But like, doesn't that change? What if the host had a different yogurt? Would their signature be different than if they just ate tacos? What if they had a bug on them? It's okay. It's okay. It's magic. Also, Axe is at the mall with them and had eaten a whole plate of nachos and is talking about all the other things he's eaten that are delicious or interesting, like cigarette butts, engine oil, the forbidden foods. He still plays with his mouth. I keep having trouble with the human Axe morph. First, he should totally be able to communicate with thought speech because it's a morph. That should be a thing. I know they're not consistent with it, but it just bothers me that like he doesn't use that, at least not yet, but he should be able to. B is that he can talk and walk. Like, we don't just know language. You learn one while you're growing up or, you know, afterwards or whatever. Like, you learn that over a bunch of time. Same with walking. Like, you learn how to balance. If I was to analogize this, I would say it's like expecting a caterpillar to know how to fly, but that's a butterfly. Like, later it learns how to fly. Maybe a butterfly instinctually knows how to fly, but a caterpillar certainly doesn't. Also, if they acquire a butterfly, do they start out as a caterpillar or a butterfly? Does the DNA of a caterpillar match the DNA of a butterfly? Since they're going to be something small, they discuss their plan to morph into termites. They got one from the building because the Yeerks are renovating or whatever, and they discarded some wood that has some termites in it already. At least they know to get like the same colony of termites this time so that they don't have another incident like they did with the ants. But nobody is particularly happy about being bugs. Like, everyone so far has had terrible experiences as being insects. They plan to go into the building that night. Everyone making cover stories about spending the night at everyone else's house. Cassie spends some time talking to her dad before leaving and helping out at the barn. He said that the burn on the skunk is bad, but it's going to live. But this skunk has given birth and those babies are still out there, hopefully surviving. But it's so weird that this burn is just such a clean semicircle. Cassie is very upset that there's poor little skunk kits out there all alone. And after a while, he leaves, and Cassie acquires the skunk before heading out. She doesn't say why at this point, just that, like, okay, I have a skunk morph now. She also mentions, I don't know if it's ever going to come up again, but she mentions that you can't acquire an animal if you have gloves on. But this time she, like, takes the gloves off, so it's okay. Everyone meets up in the woods that night, and the plan is to morph into owls to fly closer. Cassie mentions to herself that she plans on using the owl morphs to find those baby skunks. I'm not sure when that will happen. They're about to go on a mission. But anyways, Jake recaps the full plan. Fly near as owls, unmorph, crawl closer, morph into termites, burrow under the force field, get inside. Everyone is tense and nervous. They all morph, fly out. Cassie's thinking about everything except for the mission ahead, basically. She hears what she thinks is baby skunks and tries to form like a mental model of the surrounding area so that she can find it again later. When they get there and they're human again, they're talking about having to get close because termites don't go very fast. They can't be seen as humans though. So Axe suggests that they use a distraction and then the rest can go in while the distraction is running around. Axe has to go in and the rest of them draw straws from blades of grass. Jake drew the short straw. Everyone feels weird going in without him, the leader. It is what it is, as they say. You know, they figure at some point they're going to have to do a mission without their leader. They morph into termites. Jake morphs into a wolf and distracts the Yeerks. They're blind, they're slow, but they're able to get to the edge of the force field. Apparently, the force field only goes to the ground, and they're all able to find some like pine needles or leaves or anything like that block the force field from going farther, and they can just pass under it that way. So it's kind of like an invisible umbrella that stops at whatever. But where does it come from? Okay, if the force field is like a big dome on top, okay. They all head under little pieces of debris, get through the force field. They're all heading towards the queen. They like start out being like, well, there's nothing really here. This bug doesn't really think anything. This might not be so bad. And then all of a sudden, they've like lost control of themselves, and the termites are just on autopilot and start like moving towards the queen. They've got like the soldier worker type termite that will like protect the eggs and the queen and stuff. They're all under the control of the queen, mostly. Cassie eventually breaks through the spell enough when she gets close to the queen and just bites the queen's head off. Impressive that no termite was like, hey, why is that termite climbing onto our queen? Hey, why is that termite getting ready to bite the queen's head? Oh no, the queen's dead. The queen is dead. The termites are free. All the other termites, obviously, the real termites are like freaking out, but all the human termites are like, hey, I'm free from the spell. And like, they managed to get somewhere that they could unmorph, except for Cassie. She just starts freaking out because she's regained control and like starts having kind of a panic attack, and she just starts unmorphing. And the others are like, no, you're still in the wood. You need to get out before you unmorph. But she doesn't listen. So Axe uses his tail to cut open like a bigger opening as she's unmorphing so that she doesn't get like injured. Starts like shouting like, get away from me and stuff like that. Rachel goes over and like starts restraining her, covering her mouth. Like, you need to be quiet. We hear voices in the other room. You need to like quiet. But they're inside. They happen to be near some terminals, which is great. They find the info that they need there. They found that there is a panel of 3 people who are deciding the permission for the logging company. 1 votes no, 1 votes yes, and the last vote is coming to see the facility at the end of the week. He's going to vote yes after he's made a controller. I'm sorry, that needs to be more like he'll be voting yes after he's made a controller. So Axe is going to shut off the defenses so that they can all run away and not have to go out the same way that they came in. And he also set it up so that he can remotely access this computer from Marco's computer. So he makes a little back door into there. Not very good security from the Yeerks, but I guess they haven't been resisted so hard before, maybe? How advanced were the other worlds that the Yeerks have conquered? Maybe they didn't have computers. So maybe the Yeerks don't really need to know cybersecurity practices and stuff like that, right? Axe shuts down the system, everyone morphs into wolves, and just runs out the front door and makes it to safety. Pretty impressive, I think, but well, I guess the Yeerks weren't expecting it. The element of surprise does it again. In the morning, Cassie went to the forest to go try to find and save the baby skunks. Tobias said that he would help. Axe and Marco told him about Cassie freaking out. Cassie and Tobias are talking, and he's like, we're all stressed and not able to deal with things sometimes. Cassie just can't help but feel upset that she killed the termite queen. She feels like a predator, or like the Yeerks. Like she just invaded their world, the termites' world, and just destroyed that colony. And like, how's that any different from what the Yeerks are doing with humans, or what humans do when they like wreak havoc upon the environment? She's not any better all of a sudden, right? Tobias is like, actually, I think I might know where that den is. And he leads Cassie to it and departs. Cassie thinks he's going to go tell Jake what she's up to. She feels a little bad, but she treated him really coldly because why would Tobias know where that skunk baby den is? He might have eaten one of those babies already. Cassie morphs into a skunk and finds the babies, and she happened to have a grasshopper that she brought from her house, and I guess one grasshopper is enough to feed all 4 babies. And then she decides to take a nap, like cuddle up with the kits and take a nap. She wakes up to Jake yelling at her to unmorph now. She's only got a couple minutes, and she gets out, unmorphs. Jake is just livid and yelling about how, what is she, nuts, and like almost spent the rest of her life as a skunk. Marco's trying to calm him down, but Jake is like, Marco and Tobias, go for a walk so that he can talk to Cassie. He uses a lot of charged language about them being an army. They only have a couple of members and can't go around saving every animal. And it's not why they have these powers. But like, kind of his. Save the world, save the skunks. He knows what she's going through. Like, we've all had a hard time with like some of the morphs and stuff. And she's all, well, maybe humans don't always win and we can't win and it's all over. And feeling like she might kind of have given up a bit. And Jake says that it might be hopeless, but they have to keep fighting because the Yeerks are still here. And it's not about nature and saving humans. It's about saving the people that they know and care about, like his brother. Cassie says she's fine now. And Jake says, so is he, as long as she's still there. And it's like, oh. But she wants to watch over the baby skunks until the mommy skunk is ready to be released, which is a few days from now. And Tobias is going to help by keeping other predators away from the den, and they're going to take shifts into caring for the baby skunks. So they've all gathered to discuss what Cassie wants to do. The reason that they need to take shifts and morph into the mommy skunk for this is the baby skunks, they're going to imprint on whoever's taking care of them, which means they want it to be the mommy skunk, not humans. Cassie is really into this idea because she killed the termite queen, and that's like shaking her faith. How can she be a good person if she's like killing colonies of insect? Maybe she can redeem herself by like saving some baby skunks. The den is about 300 yards away from the logging compound, so they have to be careful for Yeerks as well. They're still trying to figure out how to stop the logging committee guy from getting taken over at the end of the week while they're gonna like do this babysitting mission. Over the next few days, they take care of the babies. The babies keep trying to crawl out of the den, and when it's Cassie's shift, she takes the babies out for a walk. While she's out walking, some big animal, to a skunk, comes running up, is like, oh my goodness, new friends. It turns out it's a dog, and she sprays the dog because the dog doesn't understand, like, skunk, smelly, danger. It turns out it's Jake's dog. Homer followed everyone over here into the middle of the woods or whatever. So everyone's here, and Jake tells his dog to go home. And it does? How did the dog know his way from the forest to home? Is the first question I have. The second question is, how far away is that? Is it miles away? And the dog is just like, oh yeah, I walked miles here with you guys, and now I'm going to walk on my way home miles the other way. Smart dog, though. My dog would never. Cassie apologizes for all the smelly smell, and everyone agrees that the skunk smells, and Axe says that he might actually have to run away because the smell is causing him confusion. Like, he's really affected by it. But the reason they're all out here looking for Cassie is that Axe checked the computer and found out that the committee guy isn't coming this weekend. He's coming here in like an hour. They're trying to figure out if they can save this guy, if the Yeerks are going to persuade him or infest him or what. The Yeerks just start the logging operation. So now they know that the guy is getting controlled no matter what. The Yeerks are already starting to like take out the forest. Clearly, they don't intend to let this guy have a fair vote. So their only plan at this point, since they can't get past the force field, is to save the guy before he goes into the building. They know that like once he gets into the building, it's over. But they also assume that the Yeerks are going to have to take down the shield for him to like enter the building, and that's maybe their chance to grab him. But also, the baby skunks are in the path of the logging. Everyone has bonded with the baby skunks at this point, so they're all kind of like skunk preservationists and ready for action because nobody messes with our babies. Everyone did sort of bond with the babies, like all of them were like, oh my gosh, I was a skunk mommy. Marco decided to name all of the babies. So there's Joey, Johnny, Marky, and CJ. The Ramones. I wouldn't have known that if he hadn't said anything. I don't really pay attention to who's in what. So they've all bonded with the baby skunks, and now the skunks have names. So there's no way they can let them be hurt. Tobias and Cassie are flying around and they spot the vehicles going down the road. There's only one road going into this place, into the forest, so they know it's him. The others are off doing another different part of the mission. If the guy comes out, they don't know if he's a controller yet, which, why would he need to go to the logging place if he is a controller? He could just vote wherever he's at, but okay. Or if they plan on making him a controller when he gets there. But they figure if he comes out of the car and he's all calm, he's a controller already. But if he's upset that the logging is already happening, well, maybe there's still a chance. He is upset. He gets there and he's like frantically waving his arms. He's like, what's all this then? And then the Visser 3 appears from the building as a human. It's probably set up for him to like meet with the guy, but he goes up to him and just smacks him across the face. Visser 3's like henchmen, the Yeerks, the controllers, grab the guy and are like trying to bring him in to the building. While Cassie and Tobias were flying around reconnaissancing, they were discussing what it all means, the circle of life stuff, and how can they decide who's okay to kill and who's not okay to kill. They actually discussed not hurting the committee man if he was a controller because he's human, but also if he is a controller, then maybe it is okay to hurt him. They definitely have a bias against hurting the human controllers versus the other alien controllers. Taxons, they would definitely hurt because those are like voluntarily being controlled, but the other ones, they're like, you're not human, it's okay to hurt you then, but you're still a controller. Like, you're not choosing to be part of this army of aliens, right? Like, the Visser meets the guy, slaps him across the face. Some controllers grab him. Not everyone's in position yet, so Cassie and Tobias are still birds, and they're like, well, we got to do something to like stall. They dive at the guards. They dive at Visser 3, try to scratch or claw out some eyes like you do. The Visser is like, go on full alert. More guards. More guards show up. Jake is a tiger. Rachel and Margot are wolves. And Axe is there as an Andalite. Everyone is taking out as many guards as they can. Cassie gets hit by one of the guns from a guard and falls out of the sky and starts to pass out because she's just a weak little bird. Cassie wakes up, is in a small box. That's what she described it. I'm not sure why she called it a box. She's in a small room. And the committee man is also nearby and unconscious. She can hear the Visser out through the wall. The walls to this room have like some air holes in them. It's a room, but like a box? Like, I don't know if I would ever call a room a box. She can hear the Visser out there giving orders to keep watch on the Andalite in the box. Other controllers are saying that the Andalites have turned the equipment on them and it's all moving towards the building. All the logging equipment and everything, they've somehow turned it around. It's gonna hit our building. All these logging equipment things we have. I don't actually know what logging equipment would be. Saws, trucks, I don't know. The Visser is like, well, just turn on the defenses then. Even though that's going to trap controllers outside. But like, why? Don't they have transponders on their belts or whatever to like get back inside? Why would it trap them outside? I guess maybe they were in a rush. They didn't grab all their equipment. Cassie takes this opportunity while everyone's like getting orders and everything to unmorph and then starts to morph into a skunk because she started to think like an animal, or at least like a prey versus predator model, and seems to think that a skunk is the weakness to the Yeerks. But she's trying to like, what morph do I have here that's like gonna give me an advantage? And I guess she thinks skunk. I didn't really quite follow the logic. They know that there's 15 minutes until reinforcements arrive, and the Visser has already unmorphed because he's using thought speech again, which again, if he was human, why would he need to be shouting orders? He could be thought speaking orders. Wouldn't that be even more efficient? Cassie is fully morphed, and the committee man had at some point sort of seen, like, woken up and seen her before passing out again. But, like, no one's going to believe him, right? So Cassie fully morphs, decides to use thought speak to talk to the Visser directly. She tells the Visser, like, I'm going to kill this human. And I don't think I've mentioned it up to this point in this video here. The human Animorphs have never communicated directly with the Yeerks through thought speech, except for Axe. Well, Axe isn't human, so Axe is the only Animorph that has communicated at this point because they were worried that they would give themselves away as not being Andalites, but apparently they didn't need to care that much. Cassie tries to bluff anyways, so the Visser is like, the Andalite's in there, it's threatening to kill the human that we need, which again, wouldn't another human replace that one? maybe it would set their timeline back. I don't know. So the Visser is like, get ready, everyone. We're going to open the door to the cell. A much better word than a box, by the way. And he laughs. He's like, this is the beast that this Andalite chose. And Cassie sprays everyone with her skunky butt. And everyone starts panicking. Guards run away. A couple people shoot and miss, obviously, because they're Yeerks. And the Visser is like, no, stop shooting. You're going to hit our human that we need. But everyone else is like, they're in a panic and they start running away. Cassie gets out of the cell through the door that's open now, sees the force field holding back all the heavy equipment. All the Animorphs are sitting around waiting. All the guards that they wounded or killed are spread around. She tells everyone that she sprayed the Yeerks with her skunky butt. Axe starts picking up talking to the Visser because, then it would be less obvious. It says, if the Visser lets the human go, he'll give the Visser the secret to removing the smell. And the Visser's like, psh, what? And he's like, no, you don't want that smell getting in your HVAC system of your spaceship. How are you going to get rid of that smell? It'll take months to go away. Really? They can't clean the air? I guess it's true, because the Visser is like, fine, we're going to release the committee man. We're going to release him. We're going to send him to the hospital, like you're saying. Afterwards, you'll give us the secret to removing this smell, right? And the Visser is like, but I'll get you next time, Andalites. Only he's more like Dr. Claus, so he's like, I'll get you next time, Andalites. That's not a bad impression, right? The Visser apparently kept up his end of the bargain, and the committee man goes to the hospital. And when he wakes up, he instantly votes no to logging. He says there's something about a skunk with a human face or something, but everyone's like, no, you've got a concussion or something. His vote does still count for the logging. The Animorphs, they did not keep up their end of the bargain. Axe told the Visser that grape juice is what gets rid of the smell. And so the Yeerks are just trucking in grape juice, and the Visser's just bathing in it. And throughout the book, it's come up that tomato juice is what gets rid of the smell. With Cassie, with Jake's dog, it's every time, every other time the skunks come up, tomato juice gets rid of the smell. They knew this, but they still deceived the Visser with the grape juice. But one, it's kind of widely known that tomato juice is the juice, right? B, are you telling me that there was no human controller who was like, sir, I think it's tomato juice, not grape juice? None? 3. Is that even true? And I looked it up. It's not true. It doesn't actually help. It just masks the smell. What you can actually do is use hydrogen peroxide, baking soda, and soap to help remove the smell. And also, why are they taking all this grape juice and stuff to the logging site? I guess because the Visser doesn't want to get onto his spaceship with the smell on him yet, but okay. What about the rest of the Yeerks that were there? Is it going to take longer than 3 days for their smell to go away? Are they just going to die because they don't have access to the Controna pool? I'm not sure. In the end, the gang released the mommy skunk back to its babies. The logging is taken care of. Not on anymore. Cassie is still trying to figure out how humans and herself fit into the nature and predator and prey paradigm. That's it. That's the end of the book. Final thoughts. A very short book. At least it felt very short and sort of bleh. I don't actually feel like a lot happened in this one. They saved some baby skunks. There was really no new tech, except for the force field, I guess. They stopped the logging operation, so their forest hiding spot is safe for now. It doesn't actually slow down the invasion or anything like that. They bring up a lot of moral questions in this one. We're trying to survive and stuff like that, which is the same as other animals that are like, how are we any different from the Yeerks with tearing down environments and stuff? At least these humans, the Animorphs, can fight back against that invasion with their powers. But what if ants had the ability to rise up against humans? It's just mostly Cassie actually having these kind of conundrums internally, because she is the environmentalist. She is the one who likes nature and but she's also grappling with, she destroyed a colony. She's killing hosts to Yeerks. So she is kind of thinking about that. What makes humans any better than Yeerks once you if you removed the Yeerks, what the humans do to nature, it feels the same to her at this point. Overall, this was a super fast read for me. Maybe it's just Cassie and her books are going to be a little more focused on the moral stuff and less the exciting tech and combats and stuff like that, which is fine actually, because not a lot of the other characters I feel have grappled with that yet. I'm not saying it was bad at all. It just sort of felt like filler. If you didn't read this one, what would you really be missing when another book references this event? I guess that's really all I have for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, if I missed anything that you think I should have covered. In the next one, I actually do remember a little bit of the plot, or at least, you know, some scatterings of things. So that'll be interesting. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.